Celia, good morning to you. The couple confirming this in a statement we're about to show you. The couple filing for divorce in Manhattan Supreme Court.
For years, her name hovered just on the edge of the headlines. Never quite forgotten, yet never fully revealed. Vanessa Trump. To some, she's simply the ex-wife of Donald Trump Jr. To others, she's a mystery. A woman who once lived inside one of America's most polarizing dynasties, only to vanish into silence. But who is Vanessa Trump, really? And why has her silence carried so much weight for nearly a decade?
Now, I have had the chance to interview Don Jr. over the years. He's always taken pride in being a family man and spoken glowingly of his wife and children. This, no doubt, is a tough time for the Trump family, including the president, who is very close to Don and Vanessa's children.
Born Vanessa Hayden in 1977, she grew up far from Trump Tower. Her father was a respected lawyer. Her mother ran a modeling agency, and Vanessa herself stepped into fashion at a young age. She signed with top agencies, appeared in magazines, and moved in New York's elite circles. By all appearances, she was living a charmed life. That changed in 2003 when she met Donald Trump Jr. at a fashion event, an introduction orchestrated by Donald Trump himself. 2 years later, in 2005, Vanessa and Don Jr. tied the knot in a lavish ceremony at Mar-a-Lago, surrounded by power brokers, celebrities, and the full Trump clan. She had officially stepped into one of the most famous and infamous families in America. Over the next decade, they raised 5 children in the public eye. From the outside, it looked like the perfect union, the son of a real estate mogul and his beautiful, poised wife. Photos from gala dinners and rallies showed smiles, hand-holding, and stability. But cracks began to show. Rumors swirled of stress, long absences, and the demands of the Trump name. Still, Vanessa gave no interviews, no quotes. As Don Jr. became more visible, loudly stepping into politics, Vanessa stayed in the shadows. That silence fueled speculation. Was she unhappy, or was she simply protecting her children from the spotlight? By 2018, the silence broke.
And they broke up, quite a while ago, and which was to me very sad because I think they're both great, Don and Vanessa.
Vanessa filed for divorce, shocking many. Yet still, she spoke no words publicly, no tell-all, no interviews, just silence. And in a world where every ex-wife of a powerful man seems to eventually cash in with her story, Vanessa's quiet retreat became its own story. Now, at 47, that silence is finally beginning to crack. But before we dive into what Vanessa has revealed, we must understand the weight of the years she spent as the silent ex-wife, a woman who once stood at the side of America's most controversial family and then chose to disappear. To marry into the Trump family is to step onto a stage you never truly leave. Cameras follow, headlines multiply. Every glance, every choice becomes part of a larger story, one written not just by you, but by the empire you've married. For Vanessa Trump, life as the wife of Donald Trump Jr. was no exception. From the very beginning, the Trump name meant adjusting to a world where wealth, power, and controversy walked hand in hand. Their life together began under the golden chandeliers of Mar-a-Lago, but that glittering facade came with expectations. Dinners were never just dinners. They were networking events where Vanessa sat alongside billionaires, celebrities, and political influencers. Every smile mattered. Every conversation could be analyzed. Behind the walls of Trump Tower, family life unfolded in a way that was both normal and extraordinary. Vanessa was raising 5 children, juggling school drop-offs and birthday parties, just like any other mother. But her children were Trumps. Their last name carried both privilege and pressure. Paparazzi lurked outside, and tabloids speculated about their lives. And then there was Donald Trump himself. Before he became president, he was already one of the most polarizing figures in America. Family gatherings were extensions of the Trump brand, loud, opinionated, and always under the microscope. For Vanessa, it meant navigating a powerful father-in-law, a fiercely ambitious husband, and a family empire where loyalty was expected above all else. The 2016 presidential election magnified everything. Suddenly, the Trumps weren't just a famous family, they were a political dynasty. Don Jr. was on the campaign trail, echoing his father's rhetoric, becoming one of the loudest voices in American politics. And where was Vanessa? Quietly standing at the edge of the chaos. She appeared at rallies, posed for family photos, but rarely spoke. Life inside the Trump family wasn't simply about wealth and glamour. It was about constant judgment. And for a woman who once modeled but valued privacy, the spotlight was suffocating. Privilege came with chains. For Vanessa, those chains were invisible but heavy. She was expected to stand by her husband, defend the Trump name, and smile for the cameras even when her world felt like a storm. And as politics grew louder, so did the tension in her marriage. But Vanessa kept her silence because inside the Trump family, speaking out wasn't just risky, it could be devastating. On the outside, Vanessa and Donald Trump Jr. seemed to embody the picture of success. 5 children, a glamorous lifestyle, appearances at high-profile events with confident smiles. To many, they looked untouchable. But behind those smiles, cracks were forming. Marriage is challenging in the best of circumstances. But in the Trump world, where everything was magnified, the challenges were relentless. Don Jr. grew increasingly active in his father's political rise. While Vanessa stayed home to raise their children, Don Jr. traveled constantly, campaigning under the blinding glare of the spotlight. The absences stretched longer, the divide between their worlds grew wider. Then came the rumors. Stories circulated of Don Jr.'s late nights, of strain in their relationship, of Vanessa's unease with the political firestorm. Gossip magazines painted pictures of a woman isolated, trying to shield her children while her husband became a lightning rod for controversy. And then came the scandal. Whispers of Don Jr.'s alleged affair with the celebrity while married to Vanessa. Though never confirmed, the story spread like wildfire. For the public, it was another Trump controversy. For Vanessa, it was heartbreak played out on a national stage. Yet she said nothing. Friends suggested Vanessa was overwhelmed, not just by media attention, but by the sheer weight of being a Trump. Raising 5 children largely on her own, coupled with public pressures, created a storm no smile could hide. At home, the strain was undeniable. Arguments reportedly erupted over Don Jr.'s growing involvement in politics, his constant presence in headlines, and the risks tied to his family name. Vanessa, who valued privacy, was being pulled into a world she never signed up for. By 2017, the tension had reached a breaking point. Don Jr. was one of the most visible defenders of his father's presidency, but at what cost? Behind closed doors, Vanessa was facing the reality that the man she had married was no longer the man she knew. Still, she appeared in public, smiling for photographs. Those smiles became masks, hiding exhaustion, frustration, and disappointment. Soon, even those masks could no longer hold. The divorce was coming.
March 2018, a quiet filing at Manhattan's Supreme Court would soon send shockwaves across America. Vanessa Trump, the woman who had spent more than a decade as the loyal, silent partner of Donald Trump Jr., was filing for divorce. For years, their marriage had been a staple of the Trump family's public image. Photographs of Vanessa and Don Jr. at galas, holiday gatherings, and rallies painted the picture of unity. But behind the scenes, the strain had become unbearable. The announcement came in the form of a brief statement. Vanessa and Don Jr. assured the public the split was amicable, that their children would remain their top priority, and that they had enormous respect for each other. On paper, it was civil, but the reaction was anything but. For the media, the divorce was a bombshell. Headlines blared. Pundits speculated. Was this a private family matter or a public crack in the Trump armor? Social media erupted with theories. Some pointed to Don Jr.'s alleged affairs. hers. Others highlighted Vanessa's uncomfort with politics and the spotlight. Many sympathized with her, noting the challenges of raising 5 children while her husband became one of the loudest defenders of a polarizing president. Yet through the frenzy, Vanessa remained silent. No interviews, no tell-all. While Don Jr. continued to appear on television, Vanessa stepped away completely. She retreated into a quieter life, focusing on her children and reclaiming the privacy she had lost. For her, the divorce wasn't just the end of a marriage, it was an escape. The contrast between the ex-spouses was striking. Don Jr. leaned deeper into politics, his public persona growing louder by the day. Vanessa faded from view, and that vanishing act became its own story. The divorce of Donald Trump Jr. and Vanessa Trump wasn't just another celebrity split. It was a turning point, a moment when the silent ex-wife chose her own path, away from the shadow of one of America's most powerful families. When the headlines faded and the ink on the divorce papers dried, Vanessa Trump did something almost unheard of in today's world of celebrity splits. She disappeared, not in the literal sense, but deliberately. She stepped out of the spotlight, choosing quiet over chaos, family over fame. The years following her 2018 divorce were defined not by scandal or reinvention, but by silence. While Don Jr. became louder in politics, Vanessa charted a different course. She focused on the one role that mattered most, being a mother. Raising 5 children with the Trump name brought a unique set of pressures. Paparazzi lurked, reporters sniffed around, and speculation never fully stopped. Yet Vanessa was determined to shield her children, offering them as much normalcy as possible. Those who caught glimpses of her life described something strikingly ordinary: school drop-offs, family outings, birthday celebrations away from cameras. Vanessa embraced the rhythms of motherhood, a stark contrast to her former life in the Trump orbit. Unlike others in her position, she didn't cash in on her story. No memoirs, no interviews, no curated social media. She allowed curiosity to grow without ever feeding it. Her name still surfaced occasionally, whispers about relationships, questions about co-parenting, but Vanessa never engaged. Friends described her as fiercely protective, intent on giving her children stability. In a world that thrives on noise, scandal, and spectacle, Vanessa chose the opposite. She chose quiet. She chose privacy. She chose her children. But silence can't last forever, and after nearly a decade, Vanessa's voice, long absent, is finally beginning to surface. For nearly a decade, Vanessa Trump perfected the art of silence. She turned away from cameras, ignored interview requests, and let speculation swirl. In an age where everyone seems eager to tell their story, her refusal to speak only deepened the mystery. But now, at 47, that silence is breaking. The question is simple: why now? The timing is deliberate. The Trump family has shifted from a real estate empire to a political dynasty. With Donald Trump back in the headlines and Donald Trump Jr. cementing his place as one of the loudest voices in American politics, the name Trump has never been more polarizing. Vanessa has watched from the sidelines, raising her children under the weight of a name that sparks both loyalty and anger. For years, her story was told by reporters in tabloids. She was cast as the silent ex-wife, a woman who walked away but never explained why. But silence can be dangerous. If you don't tell your story, someone else will. At 47, Vanessa is no longer the young model who married into America's most controversial family. She has lived through glamour and heartbreak, politics and divorce, and the challenge of raising 5 children alone. She has earned her voice, and perhaps she feels it's time to use it. Her choice is not gossip or revenge. It's about control. Control of her narrative, her children's legacy, and her truth in a world that has twisted it for too long. And people are listening. Political observers wonder what her words mean for Donald Trump Jr.'s future. Supporters and critics alike wait to hear if she will confirm, deny, or complicate the stories that have long followed her. But the suspense isn't only in what she will say, it's in what she won't. Vanessa may choose her words carefully, speaking just enough to be heard without being pulled back into the chaos she once left behind. At 47, Vanessa Trump isn't stepping into the spotlight as a celebrity or politician. She is stepping into it as herself, for the first time in years. And the world is ready to listen. When Vanessa Trump finally broke her silence, the world leaned in. What did she think of Donald Trump Jr.? What was her relationship with Donald Trump himself? What was life really like inside one of America's most infamous families? Her words about Donald Trump Jr. weren't fiery accusations. They were the reflections of someone who had lived through the storm and found clarity. She acknowledged their years together, the 5 children they raised, and the bond of family that endures. But she didn't shy away from the truth of their struggles. We were very different people, she admitted, and over time, those differences grew harder to ignore. She spoke of politics, long absences, and how Don Jr.'s public life pulled him away from their private one. I needed stability for myself and for our kids, and that wasn't the life we were living anymore. Her words weren't bitter, but reflective. She didn't paint her ex-husband as a villain, only as a man consumed by forces larger than their marriage. And Donald Trump himself? Her words were measured. He's an incredibly strong personality. When you're in his orbit, you feel that strength every day. But it also means everything revolves around him, his world, his ambitions, his way of doing things. She noted moments of warmth, Donald as a doting grandfather, but also the cost of life in his world. It's not easy. When you marry into the Trump family, you marry into everything that comes with it. The name, the scrutiny, the expectations. Her words painted both privilege and burden. Wealth, power, and access on one side, scandal, politics, and relentless attention on the other. I don't regret it, she said. It gave me my children, and they are my everything. But walking away was the best decision I ever made. I had to find myself again outside of the Trump name. In those words, Vanessa revealed not just her truth about Donald Jr. and Donald Trump, but about herself. She was no longer the silent ex-wife. She was a woman reclaiming her story. When Vanessa Trump broke her silence, it was as if a dam burst. For nearly a decade, she had been the quietest figure tied to the Trump dynasty. Now, at 47, her words carried more weight than anyone expected. The public reaction was immediate. News outlets dissected every phrase. Social media lit up. Some praised her candor. Finally, a voice from the inside. Others questioned her motives. Was it genuine or timed to the Trump family's political ambitions? For Trump supporters, her words cut deep. Donald Trump Jr. has long branded himself as loyal son and defender of his father. Hearing his ex-wife describe their struggles jarred that image. Her words about Donald Trump, spoken in the language of family, not politics, added nuance that challenged the dynasty's facade. Within the family, the response was muted. Publicly, there was no counterattack. Privately, insiders spoke of unease. Loyalty is the Trump empire's cornerstone, and Vanessa's decision to open the door, even slightly, felt like a breach. Politically, her words created cracks in the image of unshakable unity. Critics seized on them as proof of dysfunction. Allies dismissed them as irrelevant musings. But the timing and the public's fascination with all things Trump ensured her words resonated. For ordinary Americans, especially women, Vanessa's story struck a chord. Many saw themselves in her, a woman who lived inside power and fame, but chose family and peace. Her decision to speak after years of silence resonated as an act of strength, and perhaps that is the most powerful impact. Her revelations are not just about the Trumps, but about survival, silence, and the choice to break it. Whatever their political effect, Vanessa Trump's voice can no longer be ignored. When the cameras moved on, Vanessa Trump stepped into a quieter, simpler life, one that felt more authentic than anything inside the Trump orbit. For the first time in years, she was not defined by her last name, but by her own choices. Her role as a mother has always been central. Raising 5 children after a very public divorce is no small task, but Vanessa embraced it fully. She prioritized stability, privacy, and normalcy over chaos. Friends say she is deeply present in her children's lives, focused on balance rather than spectacle. Independence has been another defining chapter. Financially secure, Vanessa hasn't chased headlines or capitalized on the Trump name. While others leaned into politics or media, she leaned out. Her social media is minimal. Her public appearance is rare. A statement that fulfillment comes from peace, not applause. Whispers about her personal life have surfaced, but they haven't defined her. What defines her is resilience, the ability to walk away from the gravitational pull of the Trump brand and thrive. Her new beginning isn't reinvention, but returning to the woman she was before the Trump years, before cameras cameras and controversy. Those who know her say she values her privacy above all else, carving out a life that feels worlds away from political rallies and ballrooms. And perhaps that is her ultimate story. Not scandal, silence, or even revelation, but the choice to reclaim herself, to prove that after Donald, there is still life, a life defined by motherhood, independence, and freedom on her own terms. For nearly a decade, Vanessa Trump chose silence. The world speculated, but she stayed still. When she finally spoke at 47, the impact was undeniable. Her words weren't loud or sensational. They were measured, personal, authentic, and that authenticity struck a chord. In a family where public image is a battlefield, Vanessa chose truth over performance. The legacy of her voice lies not just in what she said, but when she said it. Waiting nearly 10 years showed restraint and strength. For many, especially women who lived in the shadows of powerful men, it was empowering. Silence, she proved, is not surrender. It can be preparation. Her words also matter for her children. By speaking now, she reshapes her story, not just as Donald Trump Jr.'s ex-wife, but as a woman who found her strength in her own time. For her kids, it's a lesson in dignity, resilience, and courage. Politically, her revelations may ripple through the Trump legacy, but Vanessa's own legacy won't be about politics. It will be about perspective. She offered a glimpse of life inside the storm and what it takes to walk away from it. Her future may not lie in headlines or spotlight. It may be in peace, advocacy, or simply living freely. But one truth remains. By finally speaking, she reclaimed herself. In the end, Vanessa Trump's story is not tied to the Trump name. It's tied to her decision to speak, to show that silence is powerful, but a voice, once found, can be even more enduring. At 47, she proved it's never too late to claim your own story.